Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thank you very much for joining me today. You may have noticed that I haven't been uploading that much in recent weeks. I've actually been enjoying playing too much that I haven't made any time to actually stop and record anything. I find the metagame to be sort of very alive and exciting right now. It's extremely diverse, hard to predict what you're going to play in each round. Which I quite enjoy. I love the challenge of being prepared for a wide range of decks. So I've made a couple adjustments to the main deck, some big adjustments to the sideboard. So yeah, let's go ahead and see how round one went of this Modern Friendly League. So the opponent won the die roll and is going to be on the play. This is an easy keep, I think. It's got 2 Merfolk, so I can cast the Silvergill Adept. Spreading Seas, if it looks like that's going to be the better turn 2 play, that's an option. I'd prefer one of these lands, maybe even 2 of these lands, to be spells, but I can't complain. If you imagine this hand as a mulligan to 6 with 3 lands and the 3 spells, it's a super snap keep. So it's a snap keep anyhow, as a 7-card hand. So opponent kept 7 and I kept 7. Seachrome Coast, probably ad nauseam. Sleight of hand, almost definitely ad nauseam. Could be some kind of storm build, but probably not. Okay, so for my turn, I draw Gas, Lord of Atlantis. That's exactly what we want to see in game 1 against ad nauseam. Actually, Kira would be pretty good too. So, Seachrome Coast, tapping, I guess exiling a Simian Spirit Guide to get the Pentad Prism online. Looks like the opponent kept a 1-land hand with a Simian Spirit Guide. Seems pretty aggressive. So again, hoping, I guess the only interaction I have with ad nauseam in game 1 is Kira. I'm just going to play out the Silvergill Adept. It's pretty much the obvious play anyway, and just hope to draw into Kira. If not, just draw into more Lords and apply pressure. Cursecatcher is a good draw because I guess that is some interaction, and it lets me play 2 spells next turn, the Lord and the Cursecatcher. Opponent found that second land, so they play another Pentad Prism. That is going to give them access to 6 mana, which is what they need for Angel's Grace ad nauseam, exactly. So the Cursecatcher could potentially be influential next turn. Okay, we kept the 4-land hand and have drawn 2 more lands since. So the draws could be going a little bit better, but I can't really complain yet. We still have Cursecatcher and a Lord. We've got a card draw spell and Master of Waves to apply more pressure next turn. So we're curving out pretty well, despite the land-heavy opening hand. We'll swing the opponent from 20 down to 17. First damage coming in turn 3. So a little slow against the fast combo deck. We're hoping that this Cursecatcher can slow them down a little bit. So using one of his Pentad Prism mana and 2 lands to play Phyrexian Unlife. Alright, so we were hoping to slow them down and they just slowed us down quite a bit. Phyrexian Unlife always requires at least 1 more combat step. Another Cursecatcher, a little bit clunky this turn. We're definitely just going to swing for 7 here and then play out the Master of Waves, requiring still 2 more combat steps after this. Opponent's going to go down to 10. With Master of Waves bringing 4 tokens, I think that we're going to have something like, well, let's actually count it up. So it's 10 plus that 7. 17 is exactly 20, I think. Yeah, 10 plus 10. Which could get them to the -10 that Phyrexian Unlife requires. It says as long as you have 0 or less life, all damage is dealt to you as though its source had infect. But the way that that's worded is actually really important. It says as long as you have 0 or less life, all damage is dealt to you as though its source had infect. And the first part, you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. So if he has 10 life, we can attack him for 1,000,000, and he's not going to die. He'll just go to below 0 life, and then the next attack after that is the one that starts dealing infect. So you guys might totally understand that, but I'm sure there are some of you watching that are a little bit unfamiliar with the interaction here. So just the thing to know is that in order for you to start dealing infect damage to the opponent, they need to already be below 0 life. So it doesn't, even if they have 1 life and you have 100 damage on board, you're going to have to attack twice. So the opponent has suspended a Lotus Bloom, I guess last turn. Played a land. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available here, which now that they have the Unlife is enough to play around Cursecatcher because they don't need to cast Angel's Grace anymore. And of course, as always, it looks like they do have it. Sack the Cursecatcher, try to go for it. The opponent taps the Gemstone Mine to pay for it. And I always like to see what the opponent's win condition is rather than scooping to ad nauseam. Worth noting last turn, instead of playing Master of Waves, I could have played a Spreading Seas and a Cursecatcher, but that would have slowed my clock down so much. I would have had a second Cursecatcher out on the board, which could have prevented ad nauseam this turn, in the event that he did have another land, which he did. I just felt like the aggressive path was the one to take, especially with the opponent relatively low on cards. So, as I was mentioning, I do like to see the opponent's win condition. At this point, the ad nauseam lists are all very streamlined, and they tend to just be Laboratory Maniac, Lightning Storm win conditions. So we see the Lightning Storm there in the middle of the pack. That's always the first thing they go for. They'll exile Simian Spirit Guides, and then cast the Lightning Storm. They pitch a bunch of lands, it puts a bunch of counters on it, and it deals 20 plus to our face. In the event that that doesn't work, they always have the path of Laboratory Maniac if they have extra mana. They can play this guy and then play a Serum Visions and win the game with an empty library. So the opponent already exiled one of his Simian Spirit Guides. So interesting to note also that if I had extra Cursecatchers, if the opponent exiled 3 Simian Spirit Guides to cast Lightning Storm, they wouldn't have a fourth one to pay for Cursecatcher, and Cursecatcher, since it's an ability, can play around Pact of Negation, which says counter target spell. Ad nauseam, I think, plays maybe 3 main deck Pact of Negations, so that once they draw their whole deck, if anybody wants to try to cast a Mana Leak or a Cryptic Command to counter their Lightning Storm, they've got redundant protection in the form of Pact of Negation. So anyhow, I watched the opponent draw his deck. We saw the Lightning Storm and the Laboratory Maniac, so it's pretty normal stuff. Let's see, I'm just going to click through a little bit more, show you guys. I just wait for him to get Lightning Storm on the stack. So there it is. He starts throwing lands to add charge counters, and at that point, I scooped. So game 1, a little bit frustrating. As I mentioned, we really don't have a lot of game against them. We really only have Cursecatchers and Kiras in the main deck. So yeah, let's go ahead and see how game 2 went. Now, when I click out of this screen, it's going to show the replay screen, which has the result of the match in it. So if you guys don't want to see the result of the match, I suggest looking away for like 4 seconds. Okay, you can look back now. Alright, let's see how game 2 went. I'm going to be on the play this time, which is definitely useful. This is unfortunately a mulligan. It's super strong. If one of these creatures was a Mutavault instead, it would be a snap keep. I'd eventually draw blue source and have double counter backup. 5 lands and AEther Vial is not a keep. The opponent mulligan to 6 also. So this is a keep, and it gives me a chance to talk about one of my favorite new sideboard cards. So Ceremonious Rejection is really pretty excellent in the current metagame in Modern. Eldrazi Tron is tier 1. All the old Tron decks are still, upper tier 2. You see a lot of them. You saw green-red, green-black, green-white Tron. All of them run pretty much all colorless spells. All the Eldrazi decks, Eldrazi Tron, Bant Eldrazi, Eldrazi and Taxes, all run like at least half colorless spells, if not all colorless spells. So the ability to pay 1 blue mana to counter something like an All is Dust, a 7 mana spell, or to counter a Reality Smasher, or to counter an Ugin the Spirit Dragon, or to counter a Wormcoil Engine. I have found this spell to be extremely versatile and powerful in a ton of matchups, and it actually helps against Affinity a ton also. It's a little bit more, I should say it's a little bit trickier to time. against them because we have to leave mana up and hope to catch them while casting some bomb that we want to counter. But it does a lot of work because, again, it only costs 1 blue, and it can counter anything that they've got. Basically, you know, we can counter an Etched Champion or a Steel Overseer, anything like that. So, yeah, I'm running 3 Ceremonious Rejections. I've taken out my Hurkyl's Recalls for the time being just because they're not that effective in a really, really diverse metagame. Having such a narrow artifact hate card as Hurkyl's Recall seemed to be detracting from the versatility of my sideboard. So I'm running these Ceremonious Rejections. I bring them in against Ad Nauseam because they have 4 Lotus Blooms and 4 Pentad Prisms. So if we can catch one of those, we can slow them down by a turn or so. So I'm going to keep this hand with Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Lords, and an Aether Vial and land. The opponent's deciding whether to keep his 6, and he did. I'm going to keep here, and Dispel will definitely go on the top of the deck. Alright, play my land, reveal my Island Walk Lord, and play out the Aether Vial. Pass the turn to the opponent. Dark Slick Shores to Serum Visions. Is he going to exile a Lotus Bloom? Oh, looks like he did. So we could hit that with a Ceremonious Rejection. So we already have a target for this. Very good. Alright, we know that we're drawing Dispel this turn, so we're just going to tick Aether Vial up, draw our card, and pass back to the opponent. Okay. Lotus Bloom is going to start ticking down. Opponent has his second land, so play Sleight of Hand. Passes the turn. No other mana acceleration that turn. Looks like maybe the Ceremonious Rejection catching this Lotus Bloom could slow them down a big chunk, hopefully. Aether Vial gets to go up to 2 counters. And Kira is sort of a great card to see because it's one of our few ways to win, as I've mentioned a couple times now. We just need to draw another land for Kira to become useful. I think that this should still have, well, 1 counter on it, so it'll come off next turn. Okay, so they're going for Pentad Prism now, but I think I'm going to save my Ceremonious Rejection for the Lotus Bloom, since it produces more mana than Pentad Prism, even though this is more versatile and can produce more colors. We'll bring in the Lord, start establishing a clock. We're going to tick Aether Vial up because our 2 creatures are 3 drops in our hand. And there's that land that we were hoping for. So we've got the win condition of Kira and land in hand, and it's especially good with Aether Vial on the board. If we wanted to, we could wait all the way until the opponent has Lightning Storm on the stack, at which point there's literally no way for him to win the game because we can activate Aether Vial. Then when Kira comes into the battlefield, I'm going to get priority at some point. And when I get priority with Lightning Storm on the stack, I can discard my island, redirect Lightning Storm to one of my creatures, and counter the Lightning Storm. So as long as the opponent doesn't have enough mana up to go for the Laboratory Maniac route, which they shouldn't, because unless they're expecting Kira on Aether Vial, they're probably going to go off as quickly as possible. So Aether Vial, Kira, and land is almost always a surefire way to win against Ad Nauseam. Let's see how things develop here. Swing with the Lord for 2 and pass the turn with Aether Vial on 3 up. Again, definitely not playing this land because it's so vital to our win condition. The opponent could easily play a land this turn, have access to 6 mana, go Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam, and that's it. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to note that I think it was last turn they played Boseiju, who shelters all. This lets them tap it and pay 2 life to add colorless mana, and if you spend that mana on an instant or sorcery spell, it's uncounterable. So I think that the Ad Nauseam decks play this in the sideboard, maybe like 2 copies or 1 copy, to play around counter spells, right? So pretty tricky because we've got our Dispel in hand, but if they use Boseiju to cast Ad Nauseam, we're not going to be able to use our Dispel to try to stop it. So this is going to come off of Suspend here, and I've got the Ceremonious Rejection up for it. Possible that I should have hit the Pentad Prism, in which case I could have left my Dispel up, but the opponent does have Boseiju, so the Dispel, as I mentioned, not going to be very useful here. Okay, so Serum Visions. Looks like the opponent's not going to be able to go off this turn. Let's open up the chat and see what they did with the Serum Visions here. Let's see, bottom and top, so we can expect something, since they kept something on top. Now they're using Boseiju here to cast what? Okay, an uncounterable disenchant. So we have to put Kira out now. It's not the end of the world. The opponent still needs two removal spells to be able to deal with her. So AEther Vial is going to get destroyed. Feeling a little bit vulnerable here with Boseiju. I drew a Cursecatcher, but I still feel that Dispel is more important. They have Spoils of the Vault, which is just 1 black mana, which they can't use Boseiju to cast, in which case I could use Dispel to counter the Spoils of the Vault. And the Cursecatcher is not going to add significantly to our clock. At this point, I think it's best just to keep my land untapped. Swing for 4, opponent goes down to 12. It's a slow clock, I won't lie, but we do have Kira and a land, so feeling pretty comfortable. Opponent plays a Temple, and I guess we can keep the chat open for now. And he puts the card on top. So pressure is building. Opponent starts tapping and untapping. I don't know what's going on here. Decides in the end just to pass the turn. Maybe he's bluffing something. Alright, not drawing any more lands, so gonna keep going with plan A here. Okay, so Fatal pushing the Master of the Pearl Trident, which makes me think he has another removal spell in hand. But as it turns out, he didn't. And we see, I don't know, it's kind of weird the way that the chat is working over here. Dang, I forgot about that. Pretty sure that's the only thing the opponent said this game, and it was just about the Fatal Push, which makes me feel pretty solid because it means the opponent doesn't really know how Kira works. So even if he has like 2 Slaughter Packs, he might not know how to actually sequence things correctly. So here's the Angel's Grace, and taps the Boseiju here. So completely tapping out. So interesting to note that Cursecatcher actually would have helped in this situation because... Wait, I'm sorry. Cursecatcher is good against Pact of Negation, but not against Boseiju. Boseiju spells can't be countered even by abilities, by spells or abilities. So scratch that, Cursecatcher could not have helped against this ad nauseum. But Kira definitely can. So when the opponent draws his deck in the replay, actually, it goes... it's pretty clunky, so I'm just going to click as fast as I can through all of his cards. So let's look at the revealed cards. If he has 2 Slaughter Packs, he could cast them on Kira and then go off with Lightning Storm. And that would, in fact, win, because he'd have Pact of Negation back up for my Dispel. Do we see any Slaughter Packs in here yet? Yep, there's one. One Slaughter Pact, and let's see, do we see any other ones yet? Not yet. It needs to be exactly Slaughter Pact. He has no more mana to cast like another Fatal Push or anything like that. Alright, 6 cards left. There's another Pact of Negation. Oh, there's a Fatal Push. So, yeah, it looks like only 1 Slaughter Pact and 2 Fatal Pushes, or maybe just one and one. And he used one already and got countered by Kira. Alright, so we're going to see him exile his Simian Spirit Guides, go for Lightning Storm. I'm going to actually go through this to show you guys who haven't seen it on Magic Online. I forget if I've actually got a video showing this or not. The way Lightning Storm works very quickly is it does 3 damage, and and then it has an activated ability. I think it might be the only instant spell in the game that has an activated ability that can be activated while it's on the stack. You discard a land card and put 2 charge counters on it, and then choose a new target for it. Anybody can activate it. So the opponent, what he wants to do is, because when you discard a land, it puts 2 charge counters, and Lightning Storm deals 3 damage plus the number of charge counters to a target player or creature. Basically, he wants to do like 3 plus 18 to get 21 damage. So he wants to discard at least 9 lands. We say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So a little bit overkill. Nothing wrong with that, because he's probably got like 20 lands that he can discard. Then, typically the way it would work is if you have 1 land in hand, you can discard it, and then he'd have another land, he could discard it and choose you as a target again. So here, before it can resolve, you get priority. So what you do here in Magic Online is you actually click on Lightning Storm, and then it asks you, because you're activating its ability, so you click on that, and then you have to click on your land, and then it puts your own activation of Lightning Storm on the stack. I'm not sure why it gave the opponent priority before I chose targets for my activation. I'm pretty sure that's not correct. But anyhow, the opponent has priority, and then I get to choose my target. And so I just pick one of my creatures. It doesn't matter which one, because they both have the Kira ability right now. So I just pick the Master, and when I do, his ability goes on top of everything else. It says, when he becomes a target of a spell or ability for the first time in a turn, counter that spell or ability. Now this ability, the countering of Lightning Storm, is going to resolve before any of this stuff, most importantly before the Lightning Storm itself. So the opponent's going to Slaughter Pact my Lord. I mean, pretty amateur stuff. I don't know what he thinks that's going to do for him. So my ability resolved, and we see Lightning Storm goes to the graveyard. Now all we're left with is a bunch of activated abilities that will do nothing, because all they want to do is put counters onto a spell that doesn't exist. Not quite sure the opponent knows what's going on yet, so he's going to let a few of these triggers resolve, and I think eventually he just realized that, yeah, the game was lost. So 1-1, let's go ahead and see how the last game went. Now again, I'm going to click out of this window, and you'll see the replay interface. So if you don't want to see the results of the match, look away now, please. And we are back. So let's have a look at the opening hands. Opponent's going to be on the play, which is a massive advantage in this this matchup, which is always such a race. I'm going to keep this hand just because any land, including Mutavault, will allow us to cast Silvergill Adept, and being on the draw, we should have 2 draw steps to hit some kind of land and hopefully get our game going. Even AEther Vial is a totally live draw right now. We've got a blue source, we've got a Dispel. We could mulligan and hit garbage, so there is some path to victory here, and being on the draw definitely helps in this situation. If I was on the play, I would mulligan this hand. So opponent kept, and I kept. Let's see how this one went. Dark Slick Shores and nothing. Super curious. Well, there's the land, so things going my way right away. I'll play the island and pass it to the opponent. Swamp, go. Maybe he kept a hand with like 4 fogs or something like that. There's a negate, so this hand is getting better and better. Definitely just going to play Silvergill Adept. I'm pretty sure I revealed one of the Island Walk Lord, since that guy's going to come out pretty soon. And we hit another land, so I think my draws have been absolutely perfect so far. We hit a first land when we needed it, and then a second one once we got our counter magic established. So we see Boseiju, which is scary since we've got these counter spells in hand, but his development is so slow. He's got no ramp, and we've got multiple lords to make things a little bit hard for him to overcome. So another lord. Pretty easy decision here. Play the Wanderwine Hub and play out the lord that the opponent already knows about. Swing for 3. A little bit slow getting our clock started, but it's going to snowball pretty quickly. He's going to take 7 next turn, and then lethal the following if he can't do anything. Gemstone Mine and go. I'm not sure what convinced this guy to keep this hand. I mean, I guess it has Angel's Grace, Boseiju, and Ad Nauseam, and he just thinks he can race me to turn 6. Or maybe he would draw into some acceleration or something like that. So I'm going to play a Lord here with Dispel up. If he tries to fog me right now, I would counter it, since Boseiju can't cast Darkness. It has no colorless mana in its casting cost. As I mentioned, the opponent's going to take 7, go down to 10. Okay, it's a fatal push. We've got plenty of counter magic, and he definitely can't go off next turn. So easy choice to use one of our Dispels. Again, important to note that Boseiju makes colorless mana, and you cannot use colorless mana to cast spells with only colored costs. So can't make push uncounterable with Boseiju. Clicking through my turn, opponent is down to 10, and we've got lethal on board. Pentad Prism. We would have not liked to see Phyrexian Unlife there. Okay, it looks like he doesn't have it. Phyrexian Unlife would require 2 more attack steps at the minimum. Back to my turn. Since we have lethal on board, it's going to be best just to keep up our 2 counter spells, I think. And since we do have 2 counter spells, it might be correct to actually counter fogs in this spot, especially since they have Boseiju. And next turn they could try to go off, in which case we wouldn't be able to counter it. Okay, so here's an Angel's Grace, and the way this is going to work is damage that would reduce his life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. So instead of going to 0, he's going to go to 1. Now this has split second, so I can't counter it. So the Negate and Dispel are just going to sit in my hand for a little while. So I will pass back to the opponent, and let's see if this slow hand is going to pay off for him. Well, here's an Angel's Grace, which is not usually a good sign for us. So starts tapping his lands, but then starts untapping, tapping again. Huh, what's going on here? Okay. So he cast Angel's Grace with the intention of going off with Ad Nauseam, cast as an uncounterable spell using Boseiju. All that untapping and tapping that you saw was the opponent realizing that with only 1 life, he can't actually produce mana with Boseiju because it requires him to pay 2 life. So it's sort of like a shock land. Like if you have 1 life, I don't think you even have the option of bringing it in untapped. Or do you? I don't know. I think you don't if you're at 1 life. If you're at 2, you can do it. It will kill you. But if you're at 1, you're just not allowed to do it. It would have actually been pretty funny if the opponent was at 2, because if he tapped Boseiju for mana, he would have just lost the game, I think. Instead, he chooses to go with Phyrexian Unlife, which will get him another turn, but I've got the Negate up. And unless he has a Pact of Negation, which probably wouldn't help him anyway since I've got Dispel. Oh, well, that does it. And the game ended at that point. So it was a really interesting match against Ad Nauseam. We got to win with Kira. Though, to be fair, if the opponent was a little bit savvier, they probably could have played around her better than they did. It just seemed that they didn't quite understand how Kira worked. Hopefully this was a learning experience for the opponent. And then in Game 2, we got to see this interesting interaction with Boseiju, where once the opponent is at a really low life total, Boseiju actually can't be used at all. So, fun match. Good to see that Ceremonious Rejection was able to do a little bit of work, and also that all the other sideboard counter spells can do a lot of work against combo decks like this. So let me know your guys' thoughts. Please leave comments, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks very much. Bye.